Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York.
Have a party, let's have a time. Let's drink some whiskey, let's have some wine. Big ball in Brooklyn, big ball in town. Big ball in Brooklyn, we'll dance around.
Hello, and welcome to special edition number 4 of Bluegrass Brooklyn podcast. I'm your host, Liz Wolfe, and in these special editions, we explore topics that are related to and supporting our favorite music, bluegrass. I receive a lot of questions about the best ways to start a jam. And just a little bit of my backstory. I've been playing bluegrass for a couple of decades now. I started out playing with some friends who invited me to come. I didn't even play any instrument at the time. And of course, I sang, and I started going to other people's jams. And so that is the first thing that I want to say is if you think that you would like to start a jam, the number one tip I can give you is you have to get to know other jammers. So I would show up at their jams and as much as I could contribute to other people's jams. Over time, I learned the ukulele and then I learned the guitar and then the pandemic hit. And at that point, I was going to a fair number of other people's jams. And so I'd made personal connections with people. And I had occasionally had some people over to my house to play some jams. And these are people whose email addresses I collected up or got in touch with. Over the years, having made friends, that's the second thing I would say to you, which is engage with other people, talk to them at the jams, get to know them, get their contact information. And one way you can start out is by simply inviting people to come to small gatherings. If you have a place in your house or someone else has a place where you can get used to leading jams and having people look at you as a jam leader, because that's one of the biggest things you can do is to be a gracious jam leader such that people want to come and play with you. So I was doing that and I was showing up, as I said, to other people's jams. And then the pandemic hit and my co-organizer, Ron Zwerdling, and I started hosting jams. And now I have to give Ron a lot of credit because he's the main guy that's connecting with venues, talking to me about the dates. He's the driving engine behind all of that. I'm the publicity arm of our team, but he's the person that really does all the communication with the venues, etc. Anyway, this all started where he texted me and said, do you want to get together to jam outside in Riverside Park? And we started out and there were just like 4 or 5 of us. And what we discovered was that we could play outside. There were enough people that were interested. I had enough connections built up at that time that I was able to start building an email list of people. That is my next tip, which is you have to have some way to collect people's email addresses and have them stored in a way that you can easily copy and paste those email addresses to send them out. I'm going to say something super obvious right now, but when you send out these emails, make sure that you send it in batches, that you BCC people if you're sending email in that way, so that there's not this crazy back and forth where people are replying all and people get upset. Because you want people to want to be on your list. You want people to want to be a part of your community. And if they get a lot of annoying emails from various people who have replied all, they're probably not going to want to do that. So we started out by having smaller groups, and I very deliberately started collecting people's email addresses. Now, what you may or may not know about me is I have a business background. I'm a business coach, and I know a fair amount of marketing. And what I was basically doing was applying everything that I had ever learned through my business communication into building an email list. So I already had a customer relationship management system in-house. So I had a place to store my email addresses that went past just doing Excel. If your email list does grow to be more than, let's say, 100 or so, which for some of you may be a bit ambitious, but if it does, you could look into using other mail systems like MailChimp or Constant Contact. They do have a lot of free versions, so you can do that. Why is that important? Number one, people want to feel like you are personally inviting them to this jam. And mail systems like MailChimp and Constant Contact have a very special feature where you can literally put someone's first name in, Dear Liz, would you like to come to my jam? Completely not necessary, maybe completely ambitious for some of you who are thinking right now, oh my God, you're going to make me start paying for a CRM system. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that you will want to have a way to collect people's email addresses and communicate with them. So once we started doing that, the next tip that I would tell you is think about having a regular day that you can hold a jam. Even if it's something like once a month, that's an okay interval. It's even better if it's something like the first Monday of the month or the last Saturday or some interval where people can say, oh, it's the last Saturday. Liz might be having a jam that day. But what is good is if you can do it at least once a month or maybe 2 times a month, like the first and third Tuesday, you want some predictable so that they can schedule it ahead of time. And that's the key there. You want people to be able to schedule it ahead of time. So even if you're not sending out an email to let people know about it regularly, like I do once a week, even if you're not doing that, you can still have them know. I have a friend who does a jam the second Monday. Even if I don't get an invitation from her or I lose track of it, I can reach out to her and say, are you doing that jam? If you can't come up with one night a month, that's okay too. So you're starting to build an email list and you're starting to have regular jams. Now, the next question is, how big do you want to get this to be? You might be completely satisfied with a regular 5 to 8 to 10 to 20 people showing up to your jams, and that's perfectly fine. And I don't need you to be any more ambitious. However, if you do feel that you want to be more ambitious about that, it's just, you want to have quorum at your jam. You want to have enough people so that you have variety. You have some people that are a little better at jamming, a little slower at jamming. You want to have people that are banjos, mandolins. You got to think about a bass player. We're going to come back to bass player in a minute. So it's good to have a pool of people from which you can draw. Having a business background, I actually look at bluegrass events like festivals, other people's jams, Warnick camps. I look at all those things like networking events. I go and I talk to people. And trust me, I've spent many an hour in my life at running my business over the last decades going to networking events. And it's really, really nice when you talk to people at a networking event who actually want to talk to you, who actually have an interest in what you're doing, rather than feeling like they're being sold to or something. I just like talking to people that I don't know. If that's not your thing, that's okay too. You can also ask other people to invite people. Like, do you know a banjo player? Do you have anyone you'd like to invite? The idea here being is you want to think about the jam that you're building like you're building a community. So you want to talk to people that you like and that you would want to hang out with because it's more fun when you play with people that you enjoy. It's very inexpensive to go onto Staples and make up a little business card. I have a specific business card that says Liz at bluegrassjamsnearme.com on it. And on the back is a link to how to get onto our podcast and listen to it. And I like handing them out to people. I may never hear from them again, but people feel included. People feel like you're friendly. And it's just a nice way to make some new friends. So that's one of the nicest things about bluegrass is that it's really a social community. Now, you may find a venue that's not in your house. And then a lot of people ask me, how do you find venues? Don't take this the wrong way. I go to bars. Sometimes I'm in a restaurant or a bar and I say, look, they have a back room. I wonder if they would like us to come and do a jam. Now, the good news is that because I have the community that I can draw from, when I talk to those folks, any business owner, any manager of a restaurant or a bar, I can say, I could probably get 12 to 20 people here. What night of the week do you have the fewest number of people that come into your bar? They'll tell me Monday nights, Wednesday nights. Sometimes they're doing trivia night or karaoke or something like that. So we have created established relationships with some of these venues where once a month we go to La Kayla uptown, or once a month we're at Hamilton Hall, or wherever it is that we're going that's not a public space, because they want us to bring in people. Quick side note on that, something of interest, I think, is that I know other jam leaders who do that with bars, and then the bars are very generous about providing food or drink to the jam leader. And that is something that if you want to do that, you certainly can ask for that. I didn't do that for most of the places, but every once in a while I think, why? Why didn't I do that? That's dumb. But, I also want to support those businesses. And I always ask people when we go to those, if I'm sending an email about it, hey, buy some food, buy some drink. They're going to want you to come back. You can also ask the bar owner or the manager, are they willing to promote it for you? Are they willing to put a notice up or send it out on their social media? Because you'd be amazed. I've been at some of these places and there's just somebody sitting at a table and they're like, can I play a song? Because I love bluegrass and I didn't bring my guitar. So you want to leverage other people's communities as well. And bar owners or restaurant owners are often quite willing to do that. Now, let's say you get a jam going, and sometimes you'll have plenty of people, sometimes you won't have as many people, and like that. You have to think about, what is the style of jam that you want? What is the speed of the jam? What are you open to doing? For instance, I don't mind when people bring music books and music stands and use them. It doesn't really bother me. I know that it's a way to support people who are new. Of course, many of you that know me know that I've actually created a songbook, and so a lot of people are using them. I feel that it helps facilitate sometimes when people are new, because then they're not lost and they feel like, oh, I can just follow what's in the book. I feel that's a good thing. There are jams where they explicitly say no music stands, no books. It's all about community. And Pete Wernick, if you ever listen to this, I'm sure you're going to want to encourage people to not use books. And that is fine too. The key thing there is, number one, to let people know and establish what is the style. How far, for instance, can you go from bluegrass? What is the style of your jam? Are you okay with bluegrass adjacent? Can someone play Country Roads or the Eagles or some Grateful Dead? Or are you like strictly Flat and Scruggs or, some form of bluegrass? So you have to let people know and develop your own style of that so that people know what to expect. Then there's another aspect of that, which is, who do you invite? What level of players are they? So my experience is that the better the player, the more they want to play with better players. At the same time, my experience is that there's a lot of people that have come to my jams that didn't know any bluegrass and maybe weren't even that great at playing their instrument or singing or whatever, but they're very loyal and they come over and over and over again, and then they get better. So sure, just as much as anybody else, if I happen to be out and some, Joe Val or Jam Val or IBMA or something, sure, do I want to play with some kick-ass banjo player? Of course I do. But on the other hand, I also want to honor what bluegrass is to our community and what it contributes, which is an opening of community where people can come in. Everybody has to start somewhere. But you can be selective about who you invite, and you can certainly encourage and invite some people to come to your jam so that you have the people there that you want to play with and that are, quote, better or singing more of the style, playing more of the style that you want. So that is also something that you can do, is ideally have enough people there that you enjoy playing with. So let's talk about bass players. And funny enough, there's actually plenty of bass players out there, but they don't always show up to your jam when you want them. For as wide of a community as I have built with Ron at this point, sometimes we're like, who's going to play bass on Sunday or who's going to play bass? And number one, the answer could be me. I could play bass. So I learned how to play bass. Wasn't really what I was expecting. But now I have just a little U bass and a little amp. And so if no bass player is coming, I can bring it and I can play basic bass. Funny thing about guitar players is a lot of guitar players like playing the bass. They just don't either have a bass or want to bring a bass. And so a lot of times I'll get to a jam with my bass and then I'll end up not playing it because somebody else is. They just don't want the responsibility of that. So having a bass player is important. It keeps the jam together. It keeps things going, especially if they're a pretty decent bass player. Now, some people will pay their bass players. The number I hear is something anywhere between $75 and $100, especially if it's a jam. I have no objection to paying a bass player. Sometimes the actual venue will pay the bass player. Full disclosure, it is not something that I do. People are generous with their time. Enough people around want to play the bass. I think, though, that there is certainly a way of honoring and thanking the bass player so that they feel recognized. I think that that's important. And I don't want to insult anybody by not offering them money. But on the other hand, in general, you want to have good relationships with bass players so that they come to your jam. Okay, so let's say you want to start a jam, you got yourself a bass player, you got a community of people, you know people are going to show up. How do you make the jam be a good jam that people want to come back to? Well, number one is you need a jam leader. That might be you, but it might be somebody else as well. So I want you to note that being a quote jam leader and a quote really good player are not always the same thing. So it has to be somebody who understands bluegrass etiquette, keeps the music going. They're willing to greet and welcome people. They're willing to help people find keys and play the song with them if needed, or to call the breaks for people. And I have played with many a very fine musician who is not an effective jam leader because they're more interested in playing the music than being the glue, the cohesiveness that keeps the jam going. If you've ever come to any of my jams, you will know there is not a lot of talking. First of all, there's usually a fair number of people, and I want everybody to get a turn. Second of all, if I wanted to talk, I would hang out another time with you. I want to play music. So I keep the music going, and I find that the energy of a jam dies if there's too much empty space between the songs. And then somebody like me, if it's not my jam, if somebody like me is going to start kind of stepping on and trying to take control, and you don't really want that. You don't want other people taking control of your jam. You want to have your jam, or you want to have somebody that's leading the jam so that people know what they can rely on. I do want to mention also that this might take some time to grow a list. You might have some jams that have 3 people in it. I remember going to a jam once, it was me and 2 other people, and it was like, okay, got another song, got another song. It was a little bit awkward, but I just kept doing it. And then I kept getting more people who were willing to come. And now that is definitely not an issue for us because we have the numbers. I have enough people on my email list. So I have the numbers to support it. So you want to give yourself some time to get established and gain momentum. You want to encourage people to come back. You want to reach out to them personally a few days before the jam to re-invite them. Let's say you definitely want someone to come. You say, hey, are you going to be coming? Like you send them a text, you send them an email. People like those personal touches. And if they forgot about it, they're happy to have their reminder. And so give yourself the time to build that up and gain some momentum. Now, other places that you can list your jam. Well, first of all, I have a big community on Meetup. I think I have almost 900 or maybe over 900 people on that. I have to pay for Meetup, but when you use Meetup, what's great about that is they will promote your group for you. And on Meetup, you can ask people to fill out information I have them answering 4 questions. Have you ever played at a bluegrass jam before? Yes or no? Why do I want to know that? Because I want to know, will they know the etiquette? Will they want to come to a jam camp at another time? I ask them what speed jam they're interested in, slow, medium, fast. Again, I want to know a little bit about what kind of jams I can invite them to. They've never played at a jam before and they prefer a slow jam, then I know to invite them to my super slow jam. And I ask them for their email address. If you would like to be added to my weekly email, please provide your email address. Lots of people do, lots of people don't. All I know is that when they say yes, they're now in my meetup and now they're in my email list. And so I can build from that. So Meetup is a tool that will help you to build your community. There's also other sites like Eventbrite and different places like that. There are other online bluegrass sites, magazines. There are online sites that actually allow you to list your jam. And just a quick side note, you've heard bluegrassjamsnearme.com is my website. I do have a vision that someday everybody will go on and list their jams. That's probably at least a year away before I'm really seeing the impact of that. But certainly, if you're listening to this from anywhere in the world and you would like me to list your jam that you are starting on my site, then I would be very happy to hear from you. Liz at bluegrassjamsnearme.com. And finally, I would say that if there are any Warnick Method instructors, if you know me, I'm a Warnick Method instructor. These are jam camps where you can learn about jamming. There might be some instructors in your area, and those people are looking to participate in bluegrass jams. I've also gotten a lot of referrals from music teachers who know that playing the guitar is one thing, playing the banjo is one thing in your house, going out and playing is different. So if you felt like networking with those types of folks, you could do that as well. So what I'm saying is go beyond where you would expect. Pete Wernick did an interview with us, and he gave a tip that I will repeat now, which is that wear bluegrass stuff, wear a bluegrass hat, wear a bluegrass t-shirt. Well, I don't have a banjo, but he said, I used to carry my banjo around. Anywhere he went, to anything that he might meet other musicians, he would take his banjo. And so people would say, looks like you play the banjo. And he'd say, yeah. And so that's how he got to know people. So wear bluegrass clothing. And then people might ask you about that. So it's like, hey, you're wearing a seldom seen t-shirt. I know them, Po Ramblin' Boys. Whew, that was a lot of information. Anybody that would like to start a jam, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to support. I definitely want to get more bluegrass out in the world. That's the purpose of our podcast. That's why I do so many jams here in New York City. I would love to hear from you if you have any questions or any other tips that you would like to hear. As you know, Mike and I do our jam talk, and we are very happy to talk about other ways that we can spread our joy and love of bluegrass out in the world. Thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Liz Wolfe. Please remember to follow our podcast and subscribe on our social media, Bluegrass Brooklyn, BKLYN, or go to bluegrassbrooklyn.com. Thanks so much, and we'll see you around the jam circle.
Working on the railroad, sleeping on the ground, eating soda crackers, 10 cents a pound.
Music in this episode has been Big Ball in Brooklyn by Damn Tall Buildings.